Hello, welcome to the video to make one of these. This is a little motor kit. You're going to enjoy doing this. You're going to get frustrated by doing this, but you will be able to do this if you keep your patience. Okay, it's a great little activity. So this is all the equipment you'll have in your tray, hopefully. First things first, you're going to take this bit, this spindle which will rotate. That'll be the rotating part of your motor. You're going to take a long piece of wire like this one. If you take about a centimetre off the end of one of these. Okay, you can either use a pair of scissors as I am, I seem to find it better, or a pair of wire strippers. Take off about a centimetre of the insulation. Now you should find on the spindle that one of these ends, in my case this one, has a piece of sellotape just insulating it, this exposed end of wire from the metal which rotates. You want to use this end to place in that piece of exposed wire. Hold that in place. And at right angles, hold that in, and you're going to wrap this long piece of wire bit by bit around the main spindle. The main thing to do here is to ensure that that is very tightly wrapped, because if it's loosely wrapped, it'll end up getting in the way later on when it starts to spin. So as tightly as possible. I'm trying to create a lot of tension here. All right, now that one won't go all the way around, so what I'm going to have to do is cut a little bit off just here, because the end of the wire, the two ends of the wire must be on the same side of this. So I'm going to cut it there. I'm going to, as I did earlier, strip about a centimetre off the end of that, like so. There we go, and that's in place. Now what you will need is you'll need two tiny little elastic bands, which I'm just going to take from this one I've got here. Okay, two tiny little elastic bands, like so. And you're going to hold this on in place. A bit fiddly. Around both of those exposed bits of wire. Two of them with a little space in between. Like so. So that, if you're very careful, you should have one of the points of contact of wire here and one over here. Okay, with a gap between those two elastic bands. Now I'm just going to take one that I've made earlier at this stage. Okay, if I have my spindle just here, okay, I'm going to now need to fix this to the base. You're going to have two shorter pieces of wire, pieces of wire that you can cut. At this point, anything that's been used I would just get rid of straight away, because it tends to make the contact less good. And with those two pieces of wire, on one end you're going to need about an inch, so a longer bit of exposure this time, that's going to have the wire exposed. Okay, a longer piece of exposed wire. Get that. There's always one bit that's going to take a while. There we go. Done. This is a crucial part. These two bits are going to form the contact with the rotating part of your motor. Okay, so take the base. There's points here for you to put the wire through. You want to choose two of the inner ones here, with about half a centimetre of that insulation going through. And the same through this one. Have them so they cross over like that. And then on the other side, with the wires that have been come out that side, you just want to thread through some of these holes just to add a bit of tension to it and to give you a place to connect this to the power supply. Okay, so you should have something like that. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to take a little axis of rotation just there, put that underneath those two wires that have just been exposed, making sure that obviously the contacts from the rotating part will be at the same end as the two contacts you've just made. Okay, you will need now your two pins, these ones. One of them, you can go ahead and put that on one end, putting it into the central hole just there. This end you're going to have to lift up and put into this hole, but this is the critical bit. You want to ensure that those two wires which were crossed over keep as much inner tension as possible, so they're forcing their ways onto to make a really good contact with the two ends of the rotating wire. So lift that up very carefully as you can, to the point where you can put that into this pin just here, and hopefully you've got those two wires are now pushing inwards, making really good contact. You might need to adjust them. If they're a bit too long, like mine are, just want to trim the top of it, just so that they don't connect with each other, causing a short circuit. Okay, so I've just made it just the right length. Obviously don't make it too short, otherwise it'll stop. So there we go, we've got that working like this. Almost done now. You just need to produce a magnetic field. You'll have something like this, a bit of a horseshoe shape and two magnets. Now those two are repelling one another at the moment. That's not good. What I want is for those two to be attracting one another, so that I've got a north pole and a south pole. I'm not sure which way around, but it doesn't matter. As long as you've got a north pole facing a south pole, and when you separate them, you've put them on the insides of that horseshoe. If you need a bit more space, you can put them on the outside if the wires are getting in the way. Now's the moment of truth. You put that in the gap in between, so you've got your magnetic field across the wires. All you need now, of course, for the motor effect to work is a current. So if you go over to a power supply, put it on something like 8 volts to start off with. Connect it up. You want DC, of course, this is a DC motor. Okay, you would switch it on, and you might need to just give it a little bit of a kick to start off with, but not in this one's case. As you can see, it's rotating very quickly. Now, a good motor should be able to work at a lower voltage, so I'm going to whack that down to 4 volts, keeps working. 2 volts keeps working as well. Okay, you can see a couple of sparks being created there. Oh, there we go. It's so good it's rolled itself off its axis. Okay, I hope that works for you. Ask any questions if you have any.